Welcome back to the deep dive. You sent us a really fascinating set of sources this time, all focused on something we do, what, like 20,000 times a day? Breathing.
Yeah, usually without a second thought.
Exactly. But this material, it suggests breathing is way more than just automatic. It's, well, he called it the forgotten superpower.
That's the term the sources used,
Yeah.
and it fits perfectly. We're looking at connections between, you know, ancient practices like yogic pranayama
Hmm.
and very modern figures, Wim Hof being the big one, obviously.
Right.
And it all comes together under this umbrella of conscious breathing.
So our mission today is to really dig into that material, sort of unpack the key insights. We want to understand the actual physiological differences between these methods. Why do they work? And maybe most importantly, what can you, listening right now, actually use? How can you tap into this immediate control system? Because the sources suggested, quite poetically actually, that breath is like the thread weaving through life.
That's a great way to put it. And if you can control the thread,
Then you have more control over your state, right? Your consciousness, maybe?
that's the idea. And yeah, the sources gave us plenty to work with. We have Wim Hof's methodology, the deep history and principles of pranayama, and then this broader concept tying them together. Just being aware, being conscious of your breath.
Okay.
The goal isn't just definitions, though. It's about understanding the mechanics, the power behind these different ways of breathing.
Absolutely. So the first step is probably breaking down these main approaches because they seem quite different on the surface, even if the goal, like self-regulation, is maybe the same.
Definitely different.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the Wim Hof method, the WHM.
Yeah.
It's very active. You can feel it working, measure it almost.
Oh, so what's involved?
Well, typically it involves cycles of hyperventilation, basically, really fast, deep breaths,
Okay.
followed by holding your breath, usually after breathing out,
Mm-hmm.
for quite a while sometimes.
And often paired with cold, right? Like ice baths.
Yeah, often paired with cold exposure. It's a big part of this system.
So what's the goal physiologically? It sounds intense.
It is intense. And the goals are pretty specific. That rapid breathing, it deliberately blows off a lot of carbon dioxide from your blood.
Okay.
It causes this temporary state called respiratory alkalosis. Basically, your blood becomes slightly more alkaline, less acidic.
And that does what?
Well, the theory is it primes the body for stress. It might even influence the immune system. It's designed to consciously trigger your sympathetic nervous system.
The fight or flight system.
Exactly. You're getting a controlled shot of adrenaline. That's what people talk about it like biohacking. It's an immediate high gear kind of tool.
Okay, so WHM is like intentionally stressing the system in a controlled way, maybe to build resilience. Got it. Now let's pivot. The second pillar you mentioned goes way back, pranayama.
Thousands of years back, yeah. Pranayama comes from Sanskrit. Prana means life force, vital energy, and yama means control.
Control of life force.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And it's a fundamentally different approach. It grows out of yogic philosophy, where breath isn't just about oxygen and CO2. It's seen as the vehicle for this
Yeah.
energy.
So the techniques are different too.
Very different, generally much slower, often breathing only through the nose, really focused on rhythm, regulation, not that rapid cycling you see with the Wim Hof.
Okay, that raises a big question for me right away. If Wim Hof is fast, intense, triggers adrenaline, makes your blood alkaline, how can pranayama, which sounds slow, calming, meditative almost, how can that be just as powerful? What's the mechanism there?
That's where it gets really interesting and where the sources provide some great insight. WHM might be about high activation, but pranayama is often about restoration and building tolerance
Restoration.
through slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing, breathing into your belly. That's core to many pranayama techniques. And it's the main way, besides drugs, to consciously stimulate your vagus nerve.
Ah, the vagus nerve. Okay, I've heard about that. It's like the superhighway connecting the brain to the gut, right?
Ah.
And key for the autonomic nervous system.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The ANS controls all the stuff we don't think about. Heart rate, digestion, creating itself. It's got two main branches.
Yeah.
Sympathetic, which is the gas pedal,
Fight or flight.
and parasympathetic, which is the brake. Rest and digest.
Okay.
When you breathe slowly and deeply, especially if you make your exhale longer than your inhale, you're sending a direct signal up that vagus nerve to your brain. The signal basically says, hey, everything's safe here.
And that activates the brake, the
Yeah.
parasympathetic system.
Precisely. It tells your heart to slow down, tells your body to release fewer stress hormones like cortisol. It promotes calm.
So the vagus nerve is like the lever. The sources mentioned a lever. Fast, intense breathing like WHM pulls the sympathetic lever. Slow, measured breathing like pranayama pulls the parasympathetic lever.
That's a perfect analogy. And there's another piece with pranayama CO2 tolerance.
CO2 tolerance? I thought CO2 is the bad guy we wanted to get rid of.
Well, yes and no. The urge to take a breath, it's not usually triggered by running out of oxygen. It's triggered by CO2 levels rising in your blood. Yeah. So many pranayama techniques involve controlled breath holds, not after hyperventilating like WHM, but maybe after a normal inhale or exhale, specifically to train your body to tolerate slightly higher levels of CO2 without panicking.
And why is that useful?
It builds resilience. If you're less sensitive to rising CO2, you feel less breathless, less anxious when under physical or mental stress. It increases your threshold for panic, essentially.
Okay, that contrast is really key. WHM for activation and stress inoculation, pranayama for calm, restoration, and building CO2 tolerance. And the third concept, conscious breathing.
That's really just the overarching idea, isn't it? It's this simple, profound realization that breathing, this vital function that usually runs on autopilot, is the one vital sign you can grab hold of and consciously control.
Right.
And by controlling it, you get this backdoor access to your entire autonomic nervous system. Whether you want the adrenaline rush or the deep calm, the doorway is the same.
Yeah.
Paying attention and choosing how you breathe.
That makes sense. Gives us a solid framework. Okay, so after laying that foundation, your sources moved into what felt like the aha moment section, using like extreme survival stats.
Yeah, it's a powerful way to underscore just how fundamental breath is. It forces you to look at the hierarchy of needs in a stark way.
We were asked to compare how long humans can survive without, what was it? Food, water, and breath.
That's right. And we usually think about food and water, don't we?
Yeah, prepping or camping or whatever.
Yeah.
How long can I go without food?
And the answer is surprisingly long, relatively speaking. Weeks, maybe. Up to 3 weeks without food for a healthy adult, depending on their body reserve.
Okay, weeks. And water.
Much shorter. That drops dramatically. Maybe 3 days, 4 days max, typically.
Yeah.
Depends on the conditions, of course.
Weeks for food, days for water, and breath.
Minutes. Just minutes. Often less than a minute if you're not trained in holding your breath intentionally.
Wow. Weeks versus days versus minutes. That difference in time scale is just huge.
It's staggering, isn't it? It tells us unequivocally that breath is the most immediate, the most critical limiting factor for human survival by an enormous margin.
So what's the implication of that? Why stress that point?
It highlights the speed at which things go wrong without breath. The physiological state deteriorates incredibly fast. So if you're looking for a tool, a mechanism to influence how you feel right now, faster than anything else.
Faster than food, faster than caffeine, faster than even sleep.
Exactly. You have to look at your breath. It's the fastest input we have for changing our state.
And that's why conscious control is so potent. If losing control of breath leads to panic or unconsciousness that quickly,
then regaining control or using intentional control must be the fastest way back to calm or towards a desired state. It makes that whole ANS lever idea feel much more tangible, even urgent.
Yeah, terrifyingly real, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because when the body senses danger, like low oxygen or too much CO2, that sympathetic system, the fight or flight, just floods you instantly. Training, whether it's WHM's intensity or pranayama's control, helps widen that window before the panic alarm goes off. It gives your conscious mind a chance to step in.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Let's pivot now to the really practical side. For you listening, if you're intrigued by this, the sources offered 3 specific, actionable things you can try, like today.
Yes, and they're wisely designed to be accessible. Start small, build awareness. The theory's great, but the doing is where the change happens.
Right, and the first action was about frequency, wasn't it? Not trying to hold your breath for 5 minutes on day 1.
Exactly. Action number 1 is just commit to a short daily practice. Super short. Maybe just 90 seconds or 3 minutes.
And the focus isn't performance.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The focus is just awareness, noticing your breath. Where does it seem to come from? Your chest, your belly. You're just establishing the habit of checking in. That's it. Building consistency.
That low barrier feels really important. Okay, second action. This one involved more active control, a specific technique. The sources didn't name one, but what's a good example that fits the bill for a beginner?
A classic, really effective one that illustrates the principle of controlled rhythm is box breathing, sometimes called square breathing.
Box breathing, I think I've heard of that. How does it work?
Super simple structure, usually count to 4. So you inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath gently for 4 seconds, exhale slowly for 4 seconds, and then hold the breath out gently again for 4 seconds.
Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, like drawing a square with your breath.
Exactly. 4, 4, 4, 4.
And why is that structure calming? What's it doing physiologically?
Well, a few things. The structure itself, the rhythm, is calming to the nervous system. Predictability signals safety. The pauses, the holds, break the pattern of shallow automatic breathing, and making the exhale, as long as the inhale, or even longer if you adjust the counts later, really emphasizes that vagal nerve stimulation we talked about. It directly signals the parasympathetic system, the brake pedal. It's a very simple way to impose discipline on your breathing paddle.
Got it. So action 1, consistency. Just check in daily. Action 2, try a simple rhythm like box breathing to practice control. What was the third action? It seemed more about mindset or environment.
The third action is about integration. Taking that breath awareness and pairing it with something you already do.
Oh, interesting. Like habit stacking.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to carve out separate meditation time, which can feel daunting.
Or impossible some days.
Right. You link conscious breathing to an existing routine. Maybe you take 3 deliberate breaths while the kettle boils, or before you join a stressful Zoom call, or while you're stopped at a red light.
So you use your environment or your daily tasks as the reminder, the trigger.
Exactly. It stops breathwork from being this isolated thing you do on a cushion and forget about the rest of the day. It weaves it into the fabric of your life, making it a tool you can actually use when stress hits in real time.
That makes so much sense. Using it right before you hit send on that difficult email, perhaps?
Perfect example. Taking just 3 slow, intentional breaths right then. You're actively using that vagal lever to ground yourself, to respond, instead of just reacting out of that fight or flight impulse.
So these 3 steps, daily check-in, rhythmic practice like box breathing, and integrating it into daily moments, they feel like a really practical way in. A way to start experiencing this without getting overwhelmed by, the deeper pranayama philosophies or the intensity of Wim Hof.
Precisely. They provide a pathway. You start feeling the effects, then maybe you get curious to explore further.
This has been incredibly clarifying. We've covered the mechanics behind Wim Hof's high activation method.
Flushing CO2, sympathetic drive.
And the contrasting approach of pranayama.
Vagal stimulation, CO2 tolerance, parasympathetic calm.
And crucially, how controlling this fundamental survival mechanism, breath, gives you real, tangible leverage over your own nervous system, your stress response, almost instantly.
Yeah, when you connect all the dots from the sources, it really leads to one core synthesis. There was a line in there, like a closing mantra.
What was it?
It was, to master the flow of life, you must first master the moment of air.
Master the moment of air. I like that. It lands perfectly, especially thinking about how quickly breath impacts us. And, it leaves us with a really interesting thought to chew on, building on everything we've discussed today.
What's that?
Well, if conscious, deliberate breathing can so rapidly influence things we normally think of as totally automatic, like heart rate, survival panic, the balance of our autonomic nervous system, then what other internal processes, what other automatic systems inside us might actually be more within our conscious control than we currently believe?
That is the big question, isn't it? The breath might just be the most obvious, the most accessible doorway into the body's hidden control room.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for unpacking all that with us.
My pleasure. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.